Aloha and welcome to Live Ukulele Podcast. One take, live, except not live for you guys because you'll be hearing it later, but for me, just sitting down here. It is after dinner. I had a lovely kind of breakfast for dinner of fresh eggs from my backyard and ulu, breadfruit, some sauerkraut, turmeric salsa, lots of yummy local foods. And yeah, it's dark outside, kind of need something to do. I thought I'd sit down and make a little podcast that kind of takes things a little more casually. Maybe play a little bit for you folks, discuss some things that I've seen or have been thinking about, and just hang out and see what we can get up to. Maybe this will be an easy way to get the podcast up to 4 episodes in a month or once a week, kind of a thing. If not, maybe it's just a one-time bonus episode or a good way to unwind when I feel like it. So thanks for joining me. The regular programming will continue to be on the first and third Saturday of every month as normal. But until then, I thought I'd light this off and see what happens. So I'll start here. I've got my old Franz metronome that I bought off of eBay a couple of months ago because I saw somebody on YouTube with one. I was like, that's really cool. You know me, I love timing. I love my metronomes. I love encouraging people to play with metronomes and to have an old Franz metronome. It's like a physical box. I don't know, it's 5 inches by 3 inches by 4 inches high. And it has a little knob on it and you change the speed. And when you turn it on, it's a great kind of like mechanical click sound. You can even hear the little motor in there turning things. I haven't opened it up to look at how it works. But for practice these days, I've just been setting it off and just jamming along with it and kind of improvising and trying to, keep a feel for that time and get in the groove. So I'll take you along for the ride of just a little jam thing, and then we can start talking about some things that are on my mind. Kind of establish a chord pattern. As I get more comfortable, I go a little bit more crazy. Nothing fancy, and it's super raw. But that's really just kind of how I've been practicing these days. Is I don't feel as inclined to just sit down and work on stuff as I used to, which is it's too bad. Um, Definitely something that I miss putting in the hours and doing that kind of thing. But it's just I don't know. It's hard to justify at this point in my life and my sort of music careers. I feel like I'm able to express a lot of what I want to be able to express. However, clunkily, it might not be as elegant or as well played as I'd like. But for the most part, I can, get ideas out that I'd like to do. And, as I say all the time, timing is everything. And it really is one of the biggest limiting factors, certainly for me, is I feel like if I'm focusing on my timing and I'm, intentionally trying to stay with that click and make it groove around the click, then all of my musical skills that I'm practicing in that moment are so much more, detail oriented, or by having the emphasis as timing, by being there and trying to match that, I feel like the rest of music comes along with it so much easier. That's just me. That's just me though, and kind of how I approach things these days. But I saw a cool link this morning on Ukulele Underground, which is sort of my main pulse on the ukulele scene. I don't really scour YouTube or anything for ukulele videos or follow the ukulele news a whole lot. I really kind of live under a rock as far as that goes. I just, do my thing and put my lessons and work on the site. Put those lessons out there, do that kind of thing. But it was about the Wiley Online Library, International Journal of Mental Health Nursing. I honestly don't know if this is any kind of legit. I know we got to watch out for, fake news and internet spin and everything in this day and age, but it's about combating loneliness and isolation and promoting good mental health, one ukulele at a time. And it's an interesting read. I will put a link in the show notes. And it talks about how great the ukulele is for finding a community and being able to participate as a musician and how good that is for us. And it's great. And everything in the article is right in line with what I've seen personally from the ukulele community. But I had a couple thoughts that kind of went beyond what the article covered. And that was, as American society, and I can only really speak as an American living in a Western society and kind of that which it's become, is that we don't really have a tradition of community music anymore. Somewhere along the line, I imagine when records came out and became a thing that people could purchase, that the money involved made the record execs realize that, well, if everybody can play the music and there isn't anybody who's really, idolized or made into the hero status of being a virtuoso musician, that we can't sell as many records because everybody else will own the music as well. They'll be able to play it themselves. And so, and I don't know if any of this is true, but I would guess that there was a little bit of a promotional push to try and get recorded musicians a little bit more out front and make them seem a little bit more professional and important maybe than like just normal people playing music. And if you look at other cultures and how they interact, so much of it is based around music in the community. Like I love watching videos of like people who go and visit Africa or wherever, Thailand, Bali, whatever it might be, these places that are maybe considered more third world, but they always have that core music culture. Everybody's singing, they're dancing lots of time during the day. And in America, we don't have that. So for this to be a revelation and for ukulele to be like the conduit for getting people back to that, I mean, it's super great. It's an amazing thing, and I've been part of it, and I've seen the joy that it brings to people. And I feel so blessed to be part of that community. But at the same time, it shouldn't be a super surprise that having that music in our lives in a community-based way, it shouldn't be that big of a surprise that it's good for mental health and it increases happiness and all those different things. It's just something that we've lost along the way, and it's great to see that the ukulele is bringing that back. The other thing that's not mentioned at all is Hawaii. Come on, man. I mean, I think that certainly the Hawaiian background of the ukulele has lent itself to creating that really encouraging, encompassing community. Because I mean, there's a lot of guitar players. There's more guitar players than there are ukulele players. There's lots of other instrument players where the communities are present, but they're not as encouraging, I would dare to say. And I mean, I'm not really a guitarist. I don't make time for those circles or really claim to understand the guitarist mindset or place in culture. But I think a lot of that comes from the Hawaiian background of the ukulele and the aloha that, you know, as a place, Hawaii has such a great friendly culture, and that came with the ukulele when it first came onto the scene, and everybody thinks about the ukulele and they think of palm trees and beaches, and it's always a happy thought, right? So I think that definitely should get some credit in the kind of the rise of the ukulele as this positive, encompassing community conduit for music, for sure. But then I'm biased. I feel like Hawaii's left out of ukulele culture all too much because, you know, a lot of folks aren't playing music here, and it's just kind of our little group of Hawaiian ukulele players who aren't as many as you'd think, kind of carrying the torch, and meanwhile everywhere else people are, you know, they're really excited about it. They're way more excited about ukulele than we are here, I think, just as a whole, as far as like people being amped on an idea of something. I think people in the mainland are like, wow, what a great idea. Let's all just get together in a group and play music. And, you know, that's sort of like old news in Hawaii. That's like how people certainly 10, 20, 30 years ago, that's just what you did. That was like, there was no video games or social media or what have you to distract your time. It's like, if you want to just hang out with your friends and, you know, bring a case of beer and play some music, that's what you did for entertainment. So I think it's always kind of interesting to think about the kind of cultural context of what is maybe pop culture, like what is the background of that? And that's really my only lens for being any kind of hip. I'm really painfully unhip, as my brother always points out. He's on TikTok all the time, and he's, oh, check this video out, check that video out. I was like, that's funny, that's fine, but it's like, I don't understand any of it. Doesn't make any sense to me why this is like what people do at their time, but whatever. Anyways. C is the best key to play Hawaiian music on the ukulele, in my opinion. You got the open strings for your bass notes, and everything just kind of fits. It's just the way, the place to reach to if you're working on learning Hawaiian music from a lead standpoint, not necessarily from a strumming standpoint. But if you're playing leads and like working on the stuff I talk about in the Sixth Sense course, all those double stops and everything just fits so easy in C, and it all works. That's what I was playing in for the first little diddle I did. What else could we do? What's a good song that I could play that might not get me into copyright trouble? Here we are in C again. This one I'm actually intentionally in C because this is where I can kind of sing the song better. Let's see how it goes. This is called Mauna Loa, very classic Hawaiian tune about the old steamer ship that used to run inter-island and take people between the islands before there were planes or anything. You got on a boat and you sailed your butt to wherever you had to go. Such a different time. You know, you read about the queen and all the princesses and the princes and the king and they got around by steamship, you know, in that monarchy era. It's so fascinating to know, like, my partner and I went up to Volcano a couple months ago, and we're reading the book about the volcano house. We stayed at the volcano house for her birthday just to kind of celebrate and get away and do something fun and different. And we were reading the book about how the volcano house came to be. And, you know, you don't think about it, but they rode horses there in the old days. And to get to the horses where they started in Hilo to ride up to the volcano, you know, they had to get there by steamship. And so this is a song that kind of talks about that. And it's a good way to remember that version of Hawaii, which doesn't often come to mind. You know, you get distracted by either like really long ago culture or the overthrow overshadows, but just like practical everyday life in Hawaii back in that era, you know, late 1800s it was just so fascinating, so interesting how different things were and how far ahead in the world Hawaii was as a place. You know, the palace, Iolani Palace, had electricity before the White House, and like the literature rate was more than 90% or something like that. Just crazy. Just very, very interesting how things play out over time. Anyways, this is Mauna Loa. Oh no, how does the second verse go? See, like, seriously, this is raw and uncut. One bed is enough for both of us. Kapo ka popola ai ai ka eleleu ana uno ia ka belene la ko kama amio Haina ia mai ana kapu anala ku o e hele pela ana uno ia ani o kahila kai bela o kau haina ia mai ana kapu anala ku o e hele pela ana uno ia honi ho o kahila kai bela o kau Yeah, it's called Mauna Loa. Little hiccup in the middle, but I think a lot of people don't realize how imperfect Hawaiian music is. They're really sold kind of this, lovely package of produced music, especially nowadays, the stuff that is up for like Hoku Awards. And, it's all beautiful music and everything, but it's very polished. It's not necessarily the Hawaiian music that I know. I'm so fortunate to have studied and still continue to spend time with, some of maybe the older generation of Hawaiian musicians who kind of have that little bit more backyard sensibility. And so the Hawaiian music that I hear is just, half the time everybody's just giggling and laughing at each other, making musical jokes or whatever, because it isn't perfect, right? You play through a song and you make a little goober and that just becomes part of the vibe. And also with singing, I mean, I started playing ukulele at first. I'm not really a supernatural singer. And so for me to be singing Hawaiian music, it took me a long time to kind of just relax into it. And, even just probably in this last year, I felt more comfortable singing Hawaiian music because I've realized that it can kind of be just really lazy. It doesn't have to be as pristine and precise as you might think initially, because it's kind of weird being the haole dude who rolls up to the gig and starts playing Hawaiian music. Everybody's like, oh well, you kind of sound Hawaiian but you don't look Hawaiian, and that's always been an interesting thing to try and, I won't say deal with, because it's not something that I really have to deal with, but it's an interesting dynamic. And my approach to kind of making sure that I honored the music was always to try and sing it like really super perfect and to hit all the notes perfectly and to sing all the words perfectly. And, I still try and mostly do a decent job with that. But I've also realized that part of the Hawaiian character is just kind of that really loose kanikapila nahe nahe style, which is kind of the magic. That's sort of what other people who maybe don't live here don't get about the music, is they think that it's the perfect thing and they sing it just like they heard it on the record. It's that, but it's also just the vibe, and having that kind of rough style is the vibe that I'm finding that I want to be able to continue as a musician. To, by playing that music, I'm keeping it alive in my own little way. And since that's the music that I know and love, and was fortunate enough to be raised on kind of as a musician, that's what I want to perpetuate. So I've kind of relaxed into singing a little more loosey-goosey and not being so uptight about making sure everything is totally perfect and realizing that that's part of the charm. Should probably save my file here at some point. Session name. I guess I should name my file. I haven't even done that yet. Will that work? Hey, it looks like that worked. No, I just did that. I just want to save it. Save. Oh. There we go. Now it's saving. So interesting storm today. Was watching the news earlier, and Hawaii weather's so weird. Is you can be on one island or even just a couple miles up the road, and it's fine weather, and then 10 minutes away it's like flooding and raining cats and dogs and thunder strikes, and it can be crazy. But over on Oahu, I guess they had a shelf cloud front something roll into Honolulu, and the whole horizon was just a wall of clouds, all very uniform, and they just moved into the island, and I guess that's what brought the thunderstorms that came in. But like I said, it's fine weather here. There was a couple booms up on the mountain from the thunder, but otherwise the weather was pretty fine today. But it's always just so humbling how experiences can differ between places and between people, and that we always just need to, be open-minded and considerate of everybody's experience, no matter where they're at in the world, and just kind of be mindful that it's always different everywhere. You can't put anything in a box. I was on Ukulele Underground earlier, and I saw somebody posted about a video of tone woods. And it's always interesting to hear how people talk about things that, I don't know. I come from the school of thought where external things are not super important. I mean, just in my whole life, I've never really been a stuff guy, but especially in music, I've kind of seen firsthand how stuff isn't super important. And it's interesting when you run across videos or breakdowns or people who kind of approach it from a stuff angle. And this video was very much a stuff angle because it was about tone woods and different ukuleles. And the video is whatever. It's one person's opinion. And the thing that I kind of disagree with is trying to, again, put it in a box. You can't say like he said something along the lines of, I don't know, spruce is the kind of wood that you want to use if you want to like project out and perform or record where you want your notes to really cut through, and that it's like more articulate maybe than traditional tone woods. And yes, this is all true, right? You can say anything and it can be true to a point. But what's also true is all of the situations where that's not necessarily the case. And that's sort of where I start to get really leery of putting down any absolutes and try not to put my foot in my mouth by saying something that's like, boom, this is the way it is. And I'm sure I've done that in the past where I say something unthoughtfully and maybe it comes out as a little more absolute than I would like looking back. But yeah, when you start talking about things like ukuleles or tone woods or slotted headstocks, not slotted headstocks, it just becomes such a slippery slope that I don't even like to try and climb the slope. Just keep me at the bottom. And this is part of why I so highly encourage people to try instruments whenever possible before they buy, because then it's like, so what tone wood it is, who cares? Just try it out, and if you like it, you like it. And that's something I think that gets lost, especially in an era where we're so used to 5-star Amazon reviews, and you can, you know, I like to know where my money's going and make sure I buy the best thing for my needs and something that's going to last and is highly reviewed and highly regarded, right? I think everybody does. But when it comes to instruments, it's really a whole nother ballpark, and trying to apply that mindset to it is a really slippery slope, because with instruments, it's all about opinion. It's all about interpretation. It's all about who you are as a player, how you're going to play it. And so anytime you attach an instrument or a tone wood to this or that playing style, or this or that feel, or this or that, way of projection, it's like, yeah, that's fine for one circumstance, but there's so many other circumstances where you could end up being completely off base. You hand the same tone wood to a different player, they're going to sound pretty much like them the way they play. That's what I just can't quite understand with folks who are, trying to analyze everything to death. Is like so much of the sound comes out of your fingers, and then like, yeah, nice ukuleles are important, and that's, helps bring the level of the music up so that the maximum potential can rise as well. But boy, I don't know. I've heard so many different ukuleles played by so many great artists, and every time they pick one up, it just sounds like them. I mean, sure, it's, if you play a little Macala soprano student model, it's gonna, it's not the best instrument, and you can tell when you hear that. But the intention of the music, I guess, is what I get. That's what does it for me, is the intention of the music and the presentation of the music. And that can be the same regardless of the instrument, once you're comfortable with how that instrument feels. So, yeah, always when in doubt, play the instrument first. Go to the store and try it out. Even if you have to wait, like say you got stuck in the middle of COVID and okay, I can't go anywhere because everything's shut down or whatever, or I don't feel comfortable flying, play the ukulele you have. I mean, unless it's real trash, there's lots of music to be made and lots of enjoyment to be had with whatever you have. And then, put your pennies in a jar, and when the jar is full and you can afford a trip to Hawaii, go check out Andrew at Hawaii Music Supply and try every ukulele there and see which one really speaks to you. And who cares what the tone wood is? It's going to be, if that's the right instrument for you, that's the right instrument for you, regardless of trying to put things in boxes and like, oh, spruce is a contemporary sound, and if you want to play contemporary music, you have to use spruce, and it projects, and it does this, and it does that, and koa does this, and it does that, and it's a traditional wood, and it sounds Hawaiian, and like, I don't know, I've heard a lot of really super non-Hawaiian stuff played on kamakas. It's like, you can do it. It's no big deal. It's just that the people's idea of the instrument, or the preconceptions that they have, is that it's mainly used for the one thing. And yeah, that would be a true statement. Is like, kamakas are mainly used, probably predominantly, to play Hawaiian music, at least in Hawaii. Who knows once they leave the islands. But if you have a kamaka here, odds are you play some Hawaiian music, because it's like, that's the Hawaiian ukulele. But at the same time, any dude on any given street at any given time, you could hand that kamaka to, and they could play Free Fallin' on it or Don't Stop Believin', and it would, it would come down to their presentation and not the instrument. Let's not play in C. Let's take it up a notch. I'm going to put my click going again. Let's go a little slower, maybe. Nah, even slower. Just find a vibe. This is why slow tempos are harder than fast tempos. Because there's more room to be wrong. Wow, that's rough. The trick with tremolo is always getting it in time, because there's kind of two different styles. When you're playing, you can have like super free time tremolo where you just play it as fast as you can, which is sort of right, that one. Or I'm kind of doing the finger flick. I use my middle finger. It's kind of rough. I should practice it more. And you just kind of wiggle your finger as fast as it'll go, and you sort of get the tremolo that you get, and you have to fit it into the song. But because you're not intentionally thinking about it in time, you sort of have to pay more attention to what the timing of the click is. It's easier to get off because you might, if we get on the tremolo in one place, you might not necessarily get off where you expect as far as the physical motion goes, right? If you're going down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, you might end up stopping at a weird interval with the tremolo physical motion when the timing actually requires it. As opposed to if you were to actually play, 16th tremolo or whatever, or 32nd note tremolo, you can actually figure that out. It seems like an awful lot of work to a lazy guy like me. But yeah, tremolo has always been kind of a struggle point for me, just physically playing it, because it's really hard to play it consistently and to get a strong sound from it, but also to work it in timing wise. I find it's really super easy to get lost in the time when you're playing the tremolo, and doing things like that and forcing yourself to play with like a tremolo kind of feel or vibe or theme, if you will. That's super helpful when you're playing with the click. It just forces you to pay attention to where you're at in the music. Every key has a feel. That's C sharp minor, and anywhere you go on the instrument is going to have kind of a different vibe, a different, just where it lands in the register on the instrument. It's going to have a different sort of tone to it, right? If you're playing in a key like C sharp minor, it has a little bit more of a claustrophobic, tight sound to it, because your main C sharp minor shape is going to be a little bit higher up the fretboard, right? That's all closed notes on the 6th and 4th frets, and everything around that, you don't get a lot of open strings, right? Or you don't get to play lower than that, except for a couple of chords, for your standard positions, of course. And so if you were to play an A minor, you'd have a really different kind of tone and feel and approach that you could take, because A minor is, you get all the open strings in the key of A minor. So it sort of changes the presentation that you can create, whether you have a more closed sound by playing only non-fretted notes, or if you have an open sound by playing on open ringing strings, which is why a lot of players play in the keys of F and G and C, is because those keys have a lot of open strings on the ukulele, and when you go to play, a lot of what you can do is based off of the open strings, and you can get that more full ringing sound. Whereas if you're playing in the key of C sharp or F sharp or something weird along those lines, you don't really get any open string notes, so everything that you play is fretted, and because of that, it's just going to have a little bit tighter, closed up sound, because fretted notes have that tone as opposed to an open note, right? If you play around with it sometime, you can hear that just the way that the strings ring in the register by having those open strings, you just get such a bigger, wider sound. And closed playing is harder, right? You got to fret everything, and you've got to actually play it the way you want to play. You can't just fake it till you make it kind of a thing and just hit the open strings when you need to play something, like you can with the more open keys. So it's always an interesting consideration. And if you're a more advanced player, it's always super good to try and force yourself to play in keys you're not as familiar with, and play in keys that you haven't played in a while, right? It's just like if you were stuck on an island, Tom Hanks in Castaway, at a certain point you start to like lose your facility with your predominant language, right? And you would have to talk to your volleyball or whatever he did to stay sane. Because otherwise, if you don't use something, the skill goes away, even if it's something that's so ingrained. And so if you don't play in a key for a while, even if you have been comfortable with it, if you haven't played with it in a while, I'm playing in C sharp minor there. It's like, oh, is it a D natural or is it a D sharp? And it's a D sharp. But my fingers don't necessarily remember that unless I'm always, staying up on the keys and playing in that key a lot, so that my fingers can take a walk and remember where they're actually supposed to go. And see, if you force yourself to play in a key you don't normally play in, you have to think about what in the world. Yeah. You have to think about things that are otherwise really easy. That's not quite right, but it's close enough. So like that song, I normally play it, and most ukulele players, if they're going to do like an instrumental, they'll play it in the key of G. And you get the open G string, and you get a number of other open notes when you play like the C chord and the D chord and everything. It just sounds more big and open. But if I play it in E, which is a pretty weird key, I have to play a lot of the notes closed. So it has a little bit more of especially because I'm playing lower in the register, it has a little bit more of a thicker sound because of all the notes that you fret. They're not necessarily going to ring through quite as clear, and they have a little bit more of a trapped, girthy sound to them. I don't know. Words and music are really kind of dumb. There's no way to really describe music in the English language. It just doesn't work. Something's woody or bright or dark. There's no like music specific terms like the timbre. Yeah, like timbre is the sound, but what are some timbre words? We need some words to go along with timbre. Anyways, maybe one of these days. I watched some of the 2 Mo Amer comedy specials on Netflix. Totally hilarious. But he's talking about he's a Palestinian guy, and he was talking about how speaking Arabic, you have such better curse words because the language is just like old. It's just so much radically older than the English language, and that the English language and English curse words are like, oh, that's very cute. And it's very true. English is such a young language. I wonder, if we were to keep speaking English for another 1,000 years or 2,000 years, like what would it turn into? Certainly it wouldn't be anything like what we've got now, but hopefully it would have more depth, and maybe we would have some timbre words, like how to describe music, because right now it's very lacking. It would be very interesting to know if it's easier to describe music and different sounds easier in other languages. If any of you speak other languages, I would love to hear your impressions of whether English is, where English sits on kind of the baseline of being able to describe music. Because I would think like in Arabic or in Indian or wherever, these places that are just old places, right? There's been people there forever. Certainly there have been people here forever in the Americas, but from, they weren't speaking English. So from an English perspective, English is very young in the Americas. So in a place that's old, like, the Middle East or India, in those languages, do they have words for that music that they've been playing for such a long time? I would be super curious to know. Because certainly English doesn't cut it. And anytime you try and put it into words, it just kind of falls apart, which is why you should always try your ukulele before you buy it and go to the store and try it out. If you don't live close enough to a store, save your pennies and, next time you got to go on a vacation, plan it around an ukulele store. But yeah, Mo Amer, totally hilarious, highly recommended. He curses a lot, but otherwise the comedy's fairly clean, which is always fun to see. A lot of these guys are, it's not something you'd watch with your mom kind of a thing, but he is something I'd watch with my mom. So if you need something to laugh at, very highly recommended. I kind of wish I was like live streaming this sort of a thing, because I feel like having some interaction and being able to answer questions or make it more dynamic would be fun. I guess I could do like live stream YouTubes and then put them on the podcast. But then you end up with like, I guess I could record the audio on my side too. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out my platform situation, because I have the website, and the website is obviously where I would like to have kind of my brand hosted, and it would be great to be able to interact with people on the website. But I just don't know if anybody would use like a forum feature or a chat feature or whatever the new web would have us do based on Live Ukulele, since Facebook and these different social media platforms are so everything right now. And, I deleted my fake Facebook account, and with it, my Facebook pages for Live Ukulele, and also my personal Brad Bordessa one. Just because I don't want to be on that hamster wheel anymore. That's just, I'm not interested. And especially with the pages, you have to pay Mark Zuckerberg in order for your posts to actually have any visibility with your followers. People that actually follow your page don't see most of your posts. Like, you see the post engagement and you post something up, and even if it's moderately successful, it's like 10% of your people ever saw it, because the algorithm just doesn't show it, because you're not paying money. And so you pay the money to get your stuff in front of people. And I'm just not into that. If that's the way that it works, and if some people can be, run a business and feel good about that, that's great. But that's not for me. I don't want to be part of the rat race. The whole idea of being able to teach ukulele is kind of that it's kind of a counterculture sort of an occupation, I guess. But it's kind of different and weird, and it sits between this. And I think that, I don't know, just from where I come from, being able to teach and do all this stuff from as pono a place as possible, and make sure that everything I do is, well-intentioned and not just a money grab for everything. That's not why I do it. And the fact that I'm able to pay my bills doing this is just a super nice kind of side perk, I guess. I mean, it's become a main perk because it does pay my bills, but that's not originally why I ever did this. And it's not the driving force in me wanting to produce great content. I want to produce useful lessons and, great courses, because I think that the ukulele world needs them in order to, balance out some of the more sketchy material that you might find around the web. And so, yeah, bringing it all back is, I really love to hear from you folks, and to, correspond with people, and to, have a little bit more of a community. But without the Facebook thing, I'm not exactly sure how to do that. If anybody has any ideas, I'd love to hear them. Please shoot me an email. Because, honestly, most of the correspondence that I have with folks is through email, and it feels a little bit outdated for stuff, especially that could be maybe presented more casually. If you just have a casual question, do you really want to open up your email and like send Brad an email? That seems kind of formal. Whereas if this was like a live stream and we had a little chat thing, it might be easier for folks. Blah, 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 blah. What strings do you use? That kind of a thing. But it's a catch-22, because I don't really want to do that on Facebook, and doing it on YouTube's all right, but I'm only reaching a certain portion of my people. I want to be able to reach everybody at once, and the only way I do that really is through my newsletter. So I'm stumped, but I've been thinking about it. I would love to evolve past where I'm at on that front for sure. But I'm getting a little sleepy. I think it's time to turn into bedtime mode, so I will play one last song, see what I could do, and wrap this thing up. This is kind of fun, something different. I hope you enjoyed. If you listened all the way to the end, congratulations, you made it. Be sure to tune in on the first and third Saturdays of the month for the real podcast that is actually thoughtful and much better put together, and I actually edit it and transcribe the whole thing so you could read through to the parts you actually want to know about. This is just shooting from the hip. Okay, we'll play. This is a super traditional song from the area where I live, the Hamakua district. We have the very famous Waipio Valley in our backyard, and in the valley is the beautiful Hi'ilave waterfalls. And this is a song written by Sam Leah many moons ago about said waterfall and as kind of the backdrop of social dynamics in Waipio Valley, which in the song they're a little bit kind of drama, and still to today, Waipio is kind of a drama place. Love Waipio. It's super special, but it's always like, it's just different down there, man. It's another time, and you got to be a certain type of person to be able to make it down there as a resident, and even as a visitor, to be honest. So yeah, this is called Hi'ilave. Hi'ilave ka papalohi mai a o maukele kumaka kai kena ya Hi'ilave ka papalohi mai a o maukele Pakele mai au I ka nui manu Awala au nei puni Waipio Pakele mai au I ka nui manu Awala au nei puni Waipio Aole nova ela wa amai Ahe uhi vai au Hi'ilave. That's not the right words. How do the words go? Aole nova ela wa amai Ahe uhi vai au Ya Hi'ilave. Is that it? Maybe not. No, it's not. Eiva hiva una kamakua Ahilei ai na ke kupuna Eiva hiva una kamakua Ahilei ai na ke kupuna No puna Navuna ke alai hali ia mai Noho I ka wai lele a o hi I lawe Navuna ke alai hali ia mai Noho I ka wai lele a o hi lawe Haina ia mai ana kapuana Kumaka ka ikena ya hi ilabe Haina ia mai ana kapuana Kumaka ka ikena ya hi ilabe Hi ilabe Woo! That worked out at the end. Oh boy. Yeah, so a lot of these songs, I'm not out playing, so I'm not getting a chance to really practice these songs. I don't know, there's a certain part of my set list that, well, it's old songs, right? Stuff that you've played a million times, and then you don't play any gigs. You kind of think you've got the songs, then you don't got it. And it's like, oh boy, got to go back and check the words. It's one of those, got to make sure the, that's the one. That's how it actually goes. Yeah. But you just got to refresh and keep it topped up in your mind. Because otherwise, I don't know, for me at least, if I'm not out playing gigs, then I struggle to keep some of the words fresh. But that's why you just play them. And then you kind of, realize where you need to tune things up, and you do so. And then hopefully by the time the gig comes around, you're somewhat ready. So that's all this is. Thanks for joining the ride tonight. If you enjoyed listening to this, please shoot me an email and let me know. It's always interesting to hear what people find valuable and what they don't. And if it's not valuable, then I have to decide if it's something that I like doing enough to just sit down and do it and everybody else be damned kind of a thing. Or if I'm just going to, take it out of the lineup or whatever. So let me know, please. If you want to hear more official episodes, subscribe to the podcast and check back the first and third Saturdays of the month. I hope you have a lovely night or day whenever you're listening to this. Probably gonna climb into bed and get warm and watch some Netflix or something along those lines. So, hope you're all well out there. Take care of one another. Keep playing those ukuleles, and I will catch you down the road. Oh, yeah.